Hello everyone. I hope all of you can hear me. I'm using this mic after a long time. I've never used this mic before. So if you can hear me, please let me know in the chat because I would genuinely like to know if you can hear me because I'm not using this mic for the first time. I am using this mic, lapel mic, after a long time. So if you can hear me, simply just put it in the chat. And I would simply like to start off this stream. The objective of this stream is to make sure that you understand the importance of reading and how do we actually dive deep into creating a habit, creating a sustainable habit of reading for a very long time. And it's one of the most easiest things that you can do that will give you the highest impact in your life. And trust me, it feels like reading is equal to if not the same, but somewhat in the same lines of meditation. And I've spoken to people who feel that reading has become such an integral part of their life that they cannot genuinely sustain without reading. Like, they feel that it's such an integral part of their daily routine that they, no matter which phase they are in their life, they will take out time to read. But if they feel that the impact is very high, and I'd simply like to start off this stream by quickly narrating a journey of mine where I hated reading. I was the one who never picked up books as a kid, and I would always run away from books because I always found the audio visual part very amusing. तो मेरे को TV देखना, YouTube, I loved watching videos, right? And I was never a person who would read books. And there came a time in my life where around 21, I was going through a time where I had some trust issues, and my dad randomly had kept this book called The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey, and I randomly picked up that book one day and I started reading it. And I didn't know the impact it would have actually before I started reading. And once I finished that book, trust me when I say, I became a completely different person. 100% change in my personality, 100% change in my attitude, my behavior, and everything. So before we start, I just want you guys to put in your favorite book in the live chat or in the comments. But I want to know which is your favorite book so that I can also take some learnings away from this stream. And I'm very interested in knowing which is your favorite book. So in the chat box, simply type in your favorite book and the author name, and I will make sure that I check that book out and let you know my thoughts about that book. But now, getting slowly started from this journey that you've heard about, me starting to read, and how did it come across, what were the things that happened, how did I develop this habit of reading. To give you also an example, it came to such an extent that right now I am someone who reviews books on Instagram, not for any purpose but simply to spread knowledge and let people know that reading is not as difficult as you think it is. It's genuinely the most easiest part that you can do in your life. Finally, one comment: we learn nothing. The name of the book is We Learn Nothing. Oh, got it. Okay, I'll check that out, Karina. Thank you so much for letting me know. Anyone else who's watching this, note down your favorite book in the chat box, and I would definitely like to know. And it does not only have to be one book, you can mention several books, right? So let's get started. I won't dive too deep into the types of genres because you obviously know, people who are watching this stream would have an idea about the kind of genres that currently exist, right? We have fiction and we have non-fiction. Now, there are people who like to read fiction and there are people who genuinely love non-fiction. Keeping my personal biases aside, in this stream, we are trying to figure out what suits you the best. So in this stream, we'll try to figure out, understanding these genres in a very quick way, we'll try to figure out which books suit you the best, or which books do you think will help you in your life in whichever position you are currently, right? Also, before getting into it, I would urge the viewers to like this stream and hit the subscribe button. That would be of great help because I'm going to keep coming up with this kind of content for a long time, and I hope so that I do. We will cover topics, and anyone who's watching this for the first time, we will cover topics like psychology, neuroscience, human behavior. I love gaming, so gaming is also a very important part of this channel. So I have to divide my streams accordingly about which streams do we have to be about knowledge and which streams have to be about gaming. So we're going to cover that as well. Diving deep into directly, how can you become a good reader? Let's understand why certain people read non-fiction, why certain people read fiction. We'll start off with why people read non-fiction, and to understand this mindset better, I think it's very easy to know why they read non-fiction. Now, what is non-fiction? Non-fiction, as you genuinely must know, non-fiction is something that is very real, that is not made up, right? That something exists in reality, and it's got nothing to do with romance or mystery or sci-fi as it is in non-fiction, in fiction, sorry. So non-fiction is all about reality. It's about the current world, right? And why do people read non-fiction? Now, a lot of reasons. One is that they have a lot of interest in gaining knowledge. Now, when I say knowledge, it does not mean that non-fiction readers or fiction readers don't get knowledge. It simply means that in the pursuit of knowledge, that you want to know something, then you already do, right? That's one of the very important reasons that people select non-fiction as their genre. Next thing is that people who continuously want to grow in their life, right, who believe that there is so much out there in the world that they don't know, but something that they think that does not exist in fiction, something that is not real, right? They do not seek out for that. They seek for something that is very real, authentic, that makes sense to the real world. That's point number two. So we have point number one, who's joining again. Point number one is people who seek knowledge, right? Read non-fiction books. People who believe in lifelong growth and learning, right? So that's point number two. Point number three, there are a lot of people who need certain motivation in life to do something, right? For example, as simple as someone as me who wants to start, say, streaming. Take the simplest example. I would seek motivation in an extrinsic manner, which means that I will seek out motivation from the outside source of the world, which is talking to people, getting their views on should I stream, should I not stream, what kind of books should I read, etc. And then there is intrinsic motivation, where you feel internally that why not? What's the point of not streaming? Let me just directly get into it, right? So that's intrinsic. People genuinely sometimes need extrinsic motivation. That means that they need to find inspiration sometimes when they don't find it within, and it happens to all of us, every one of us, right? In this kind of time, what they do is they find a book that motivates them to do something, or simply makes them aware about what they already know. And what this does is it genuinely gives them more clarity on what they should pursue and what they should not pursue, right? So these three very important factors for why people read non-fiction. We then come to real life situations. So as we all know, non-fiction is all about people who believe that, I don't want to read something that's not real. It doesn't make sense to me, right? Because I already see it in videos, I see it in movies, I see it everywhere. But when it comes to reading, I want to read about real life solutions. And these is specifically for a non-fiction reader. So the books are all filled with practical advice, right? So it's got to do with things that you're supposed to do in life, not to do in life, how to keep yourself happy, how to motivate others, how to motivate yourself, what are the kind of habits you should form, everything. Fiction talks about, I think it's good that if we cover fiction later. Right now, I'll only talk about non-fiction. Then comes for people who are interested in starting a business or entrepreneurship. So there are people who want to start their own business and they don't know how to do it. So they approach it in two ways. One is you directly go out there, right? You directly find out, oh, what are the documents required, or is a sole proprietor, what do I want to be, and they figure their way out by experiencing things. There are other kind of people who like to thoroughly study before they start anything, so that they have a very clear idea about what they're going ahead. Both types of people, they have their own advantages and they have their own disadvantages. When it comes to people who like to be thoroughly understood, like when people genuinely want to understand the whole thing before they go out and experience, they have certain pros and cons. Some of them being, when you study too much theory, बाहर जाके पता चलता है कि shit dude, theory के हिसाब से तो कुछ भी नहीं चल रहा. Like, I genuinely have to improvise so much that I feel that sometimes, I read so much, but what was the point, right? Necessarily, it might not come to use at that very point of time, but आगे जाके, when you grow up, it genuinely has a very important role to play. So understand, no matter what kind of a person you are, knowledge will never go to waste. You will always find it, coming to your rescue at any given point of time in your life. And the last reason that I believe why people read non-fiction is because they want to understand the human nature, because it is so complicated in nature. And as you must know, there are so many psychology books out there now. इतने सारे psychology books है, biographies, autobiographies, understanding the human brain, human behavior, organizational psychology. There are so many subjects in non-fiction itself, and that genuinely motivates people to go out and explore what the real world, please pay attention, what the real world has to offer, right? That includes understanding the human behavior. How do I deal with certain people? How do I ignore certain people? There are so many inputs that are coming in. For example, there are so many advices coming in. How do I take those? How do I sort of have a place where I can sit down, sit calmly, think, and then continue my life forward, right? That was all about non-fiction, people, right? Very important. And by the way that I'm speaking about non-fiction people, you yourself must have categorized in your head about what kind of a person you are, right? Are you this kind of a person or not? Because I haven't spoken about fiction yet. But let's come to fiction. Fiction to me is a very interesting genre, and a genre that I personally haven't explored much, but I have read a lot about why people want to read fiction, and it's a very interesting insight. Like, it's one of the most mind-blowing insights that I have read about reading, and I'm very excited to tell you. You will be surprised to know that 64.3% of people who are readers, right, they are women. 64.3% women readers read fiction, and 35.7% of people, or men, or the remaining part, read fiction. Very clearly indicating that fiction is read more by women and less by men in compared to the statistics that have come out in different websites. And I think going further in the stream, we will also see where these statistics come from and what's the role and how is it going to impact our life and everything. But before going forward, I want you to comment or put in the chat box that at which age did you start reading, and this will give a lot of insight about you as an individual. Because have you grown up in an era where your parents were avid readers and you found that reading is genuinely therapeutic, or you were someone who was in the video category and slowly in life you realized a lot of people around you started reading and you thought, oh my god, let me get into this reading habit and see where it takes me. So I want to know at which age did you start reading. That's very important thing. Let's come to why people read fiction, right? A very important aspect that I personally believe is also true, and you can let me know in the chat box or in the comments of the stream if you think this is true as well. But it's because fiction readers want to escape reality. When you talk about fiction as a subject, it has so many subgenres in itself. So it has subgenres like mystery, it has romance, it has sci-fi, thriller, everything, right? All kinds of subgenres, and all of them are equally exciting, right? But one of the main things is, what I personally believe is that fiction helps you escape from reality, right? It takes you to a place where you don't want to be currently, right? Like it takes you from the current space of where you're existing to somewhere that you think you want to be, right? It takes you away into an imaginary world, and that in itself excites people. There are some people who might not be happy with where they are. Some people feel that they're very bored where they are, so they want to go into some place that gives them a fresh new perspective of the new world. They want to see what other things are there apart from this world itself, right? What are the kind of stories that authors can create in their head that is so exciting for readers. So one of the very important points that I feel is that fiction readers want to escape from reality. Point number 2, they want to emotionally connect with someone. Now when I say someone, it can be a character, it can be a friend, it can be anyone inside that book that they want to connect with. I'm not saying that these people look out for emotional connection, but I possibly can generalize in a way, according to my knowledge, whatever I have, is that more emotional people, right? People who have a lot of emotions in them genuinely tend to go towards fiction, because there are a lot of characters in this world or outside this world that they relate to. You know, if someone tells you this person never ate their lunchbox in school, he was always notorious, he did this, it'll be a lot of things that you would be able to relate to as a person, right, as yourself, and that makes them emotionally connect with that character to such an extent that they even start thinking that, you know, I connect with this character, like this character is me, I'm like, you know, this character is my friend. They feel so strongly about characters, and I had also felt about, you know, one character like that, surprisingly, with all the limited readings that I have of fiction. I remember, if anyone has read Percy Jackson, that's the only fiction series that I've read in my life. I have not read Harry Potter, so you have to let me know in the chat box as well if I should read Harry Potter, and if yes, possibly why, so that I can also take away some things from this stream. But there's this character in Percy Jackson called Leo, and he was described at that point of time when I was a teenage kid exactly how I was, and I understand that. I understand why people, you know, slowly start going into fiction. Karina has written, one doesn't need to be bored, unhappy to want to read fiction. Escaping has a negative connotation to it. What do you think? At some point, or if you look at it that way, yes, I do believe a little bit that escaping has some form of a negative connotation to it, but I don't think that's entirely the case. Take as simple as an example that I am someone who is working currently and I want to go play cricket because I'm bored of this work, or you know, there's something exciting that I'm looking forward to in the day. That does not mean that I feel badly towards my work, but it's just something that I want that makes me happy, right? It can even be in that context. So it does not necessarily have to be negative. It can also be in the form of, I want something new in my life. I don't want something realistic. I don't want something that everyone knows, right? I want to create my own journey of experiencing the world that is not real. A very nice way to put it. Yes, I want to create my own experience of feeling something that is not real, and that's what even fiction people genuinely tend to go towards, right? Third thing is that people who want adventure, people who want thrills, right? When you compare non-fiction and fiction, non-fiction, the genre that I personally love, is very straightforward. It tells you the things that you're supposed to do, the things that you're not supposed to do, right? What fiction does is it takes you on in a journey. It takes you on a journey of finding out about the characters at different points, finding out about yourself, finding out through various mazes. For example, they might create a very different problem, they might create a very creative solution. For example, a person who doesn't know what to do in life, right? They will talk about how the person, say for example, took hiking as his journey, and he went through a lot of emotions. He wanted to climb the Himalayas, he went through so many things just to experience what it feels like to be itself, right? So I think, yeah, having adventures, having thrills, the use of magic to understand, to teach values, to teach lessons. There are so many ways that you can sort of express yourself without having to, dive directly into the real world. So I think adventure and thrills is a very important part. Second, or actually the third, people find a lot of relatable stories when they talk about fiction. I have spoken to so many people who find that once I've read this particular story, it feels like this is my story, right? It feels like the author knows this person individually, right? And I think the fact that people connect to stories so strongly makes them want to read fiction a lot more, because they feel that that story is written for them. It motivates them to keep reading. There's some sort of, if I had to explain it in biological terms, I feel that their dopamine slowly starts rising. In a neuroscientific way, I can say that they're expecting something, right? That craving of, oh, this story is mine, this story is mine, really makes them continue to want to read this, finish this whole book. That's why you will see, and I think I also have one example where I can tell you, people who read fiction books tend to genuinely finish it quite fast, right? Like they can't wait as to what happens next. They want to finish it fast, even though the story is so big, even though it's so complex, even though if the book is extremely, lengthy, they would want to finish it as soon as possible. Because I've also experienced this. As a person who has limited knowledge in fiction, I've read a few fiction books, and I feel, shit, I can't, like, I cannot not complete this book. I have to, because I have to know what the end is. So for fiction readers, it's also the end. It's also the end that gives them the hook. It's also what's going to happen next that gives them the hook, right? One another important reason that I can think of is comfort, right? When you talk about fiction, it gives you a sense of comfort because you know things are not as real as they already are, right? And it also comes across as a comfort thing that you go to, right, during tough times. So for example, if my life, for example, is going bad right now, I don't want to know the truth. I don't want to know that this is wrong with this world, these people are bad, these things are not good. What I want to experience is something that's above all of this, something that I don't have to use my brain so much, but I genuinely want to simply find comfort, peace, happiness, joy. I want to experience thrill, adventure, all of the emotions apart from what I'm feeling right now, right? I think that's one very important thing that I feel why people read fiction, right? Now we'll come to the most important part of this stream, is how do you decide which book do you want to read according to your personality. So I'm going to ask a few questions, right? And you don't have to answer it right now. You can take a minute, think about it, and automatically make a checklist about what kind of a person you are and what are you currently seeking in life. Please know that this checklist is not a fixed checklist for the rest of your life. This might change on a weekly basis, this might change on a monthly basis, this might change on a yearly basis, it might even change, for example, on an alternate day basis, right? But the important part about forming a habit of reading is that you have to be sustainable when it comes to reading. I have a lot of books in front of me, right? Like I will slowly get into it, but just to give you a heads up, right now I have these many books to just give you an idea that if you are this kind of a person, you can read these books, right? One very important thing that I have done is that I have also given the links of the books in the description below. So if you go to the description, you will find a list of Amazon links that you can directly click and buy. I get no commission, so there's no paid activity, nothing like that. It's just for your ease, so that you slowly start getting into the reading habit. My only objective of today's stream is that you get slowly and steadily into the reading habit, right? Let's directly get to you as a person, you as a personality, and I want you to write down in the chat box as we go through it, so that you also understand what kind of a person you are, right? How do we differentiate which books should you read according to your current circumstances, right? Let's start with two simple words: imagination and information. These two words, put yourself in one of these categories, right? For someone who's starting to watch this stream, we have just dived into the most important part of the stream, which is understanding which books you should read based on your personality. And we're going to find out about how you are as a person by simply going through a list of questions that you have to answer. Okay, first question: just divide yourself in your brain. What do you want at this point of time? Is it imagination? Is it information? That's point number one. If you're looking for something imaginative, if you're looking for something an out of the world experience, you should probably go for a non-fiction book. If you're someone who's interested in information, if you think that you believe that there is a lot to know about this world than there currently is, and you feel like there are so many things that I have to explore, you should go towards non-fiction. Let's go to point number two. What's your purpose right now? What do you feel like doing? Is it entertainment or is it gain insights? So we started off with question number one: imaginative, informative. Question number two: entertainment or gain insights, right? There are some people who do not want to indulge in insights all the time, who do not want, quote unquote, what people think of non-fiction books as gyan, right? There are some people who just want to live in the moment, who want to experience the beauty of the world that does not exist in reality, right? So people who want entertainment, people who want to gain insights. If you're someone who's looking for entertainment, fiction is your category at this point of life. Someone who's looking for gaining insights about anything in this real world, you can go for non-fiction. We've covered 2 points. We'll come to the third point. What kind of emotional connection do you currently want to experience? A very, very important question that helps viewers decide, or that helps you decide, which kind of book do you want to read. It is said in general that women are more emotional in nature than men. They also process feelings faster. They have a very emotional way of looking at the world, because we all know since civilization, women have been more interested in people, whereas men have been more interested in things, in logic, right? So what is the kind of emotional connection do you want to have? Two types. One, do you want to form an attachment with characters? Do you want to bond with characters? It also can be that you don't want to bond with someone who's real, right? I want to bond with someone that doesn't exist, someone who I think is like me, right? That is one aspect. So one is bond with characters, right? Forming attachments. And second is that you want to understand how empathy works. You want to understand, real life stories of how to, for example, process emotions, how to process your mental health, how to do this, how to take care of your feelings, how to take care of others' feelings. It's divided into 2 parts. So now we've come to the third part. Bond with characters. If you want to bond with characters, if you want to get in touch with, say, a character that you think that you resonate the most with, and sometimes it happens that that character is written exactly how you are, right? And when you want to feel those things, go for fiction. If you want to understand real life instances of going into emotions a level deeper than you already know, like empathy, neuroscience, if you want to understand self-help as a category, if you want to understand how to process your feelings, how to process others' feelings, how do I process my mental health, all of those things, if you want to understand at this point of your time, go for non-fiction. So we've covered 3 aspects till now. Categorize yourself accordingly and make a quick checklist. It won't take more than 30 seconds to get you into reading. Trust me on it. Imagination, information. Divide yourself. Entertainment, or do you want to gain insights? Divide yourself. Bond with characters, or do you want to understand real life emotions, empathy, processing emotions, etc. Again, 2 aspects. Fourth important thing is, what is your interest at this point of time? Where does your curiosity lie at this point of time, right? For example, a very simple example. When you're a kid, or when you were a kid, or even kids these days, they want to read more and more fiction. They understand stories better, right? As a kid, you must have not read, I believe, I personally think so, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat box or in the comments, but I'm sure that as a kid you did not read self-help books, right? I think it was got to do more with evolving stories, because it is also said that stories is the most easiest way to explain something to someone. It is the most easiest way to explain your theories to someone. It can be a lesson that you want to know or teach. It can be a theory that you want to teach. It can be an insight that you want to share. I'm sure all of you must relate to this point when I say that at least my mom, and I think I should talk from my perspective, and also you can let me know if your moms did the same and how did they do it. When moms want to teach you something, most of the times they will talk about experiences, they will talk about stories, they will talk about instances that happened in their life, or talk about Ramayana or Mahabharata or any stories that their parents have taught them, right? Because for them it was only through the ways of stories that they understood concepts and theories, right? Let me know what kind of how did your mom teach you, right? So also let me know in the chat box. Third, right? So what's your interest and curiosity at this point? Are you curious about exploration? Do you want to explore different subgenres, as how do people write romantically? How do people perceive thriller? How do people experience horror? How do people experience mystery thriller as a subject, right? How do people, or how do I want to experience sci-fi, right, as a subgenre? There are so many subgenres, right? So is that your interest? So that's another sub aspect. Or are you more interested in self-help category? Are you more interested in biographies? Are you more interested in understanding history? Are you more interested in understanding people? There are a lot of subgenres in non-fiction as well. All you have to do is simply categorize. In your brain, take a moment and just simply categorize what kind of a person are you. Do you want to explore romance, thriller, mystery, sci-fi? Do you want to experience those kind of things? Or do you want to experience something as simple as biography? Do you want to experience autobiography? You want to understand people? Where is your current state of mind, right? So you have to categorize that way. The next most important thing that you have to take care and you have to know is, what is the reading time that you can allocate according to your current situation? Very simple, and one of the most important factors of this stream and this question that you have to ask yourself. If you are someone who has a little bit more time in their hand, and it can be due to very simple reasons, as simple as I wake up 1 hour early than the rest of the people, or I go to sleep 1 hour later than the rest of the people. It can be any reason. You have a job, you don't have a job, you're an entrepreneur, you are working somewhere, you have a job, you're a software engineer. It doesn't matter. If you think that your time management is good and in your hand currently you have a little more time than the rest of the people, go for fiction, right? And I'll tell you why. Fiction requires a bit of longer concentration periods in general than compared to non-fiction, and I'll tell you why. When you read a story, you hate it when you have to let it go in the middle, right? For example, in India, if you look at it, right, when you're at such an important stage in the movie and there's an interval that comes, so frustrating, right? Like you have to get up in the middle of such an immersive experience, go out and then come back and start watching like nothing happened, right? For some people that is very irritating. For people who have a little bit of longer concentration, who believe that they want to completely immerse in the experience, go for fiction. For someone who has lesser time in their hands or who has less time on their hands, and someone who wants to focus on very specific aspects of life, please go for non-fiction. A very simple logic behind this is that when you start reading non-fiction, there is no story, there is no imaginative, unrealistic story that comes into play. Mostly, as far as I have read as a self-help person who reads most of self-help books, I believe that it's got to do a lot with a little bit of stories here and there, but understanding the concepts, understanding the basics of life in a very simple way. So for people who are joining again, make a checklist of two kinds, fiction and non-fiction, right? Understand yourself as a human. Ask yourself these questions very quickly. Imagination or informative? What's your mindset right now? Do you want to go into entertainment or do you want to gain insights? What's your thought process right now? Do you want to bond with characters or do you want to understand real life emotions, empathy, processing emotions, all of those things? That's point number 3. Point number 4. What's your interest and curiosity? Where is your mind headed towards? Do you want to explore subgenres such as romance, mystery, thriller, sci-fi? All of those things that interest you, go for fiction. If you're someone who wants to understand the category of self-help, someone who wants to understand biographies, autobiographies, neuroscience, psychology, human behavior, there are so many subgroups in non-fiction. If you're someone who's interested in those things, go for non-fiction. Most important point that I'm coming to right now, and again I will repeat myself, what's the reading time that you can allocate? If you have a lot of reading time in your hand compared to the normal people, if you wake up 1 hour early, if you sleep 1 hour late, if you have a little bit of more time in your life than compared to others, and if you're able to even manage your time better than most people, you should go for fiction, because that requires a longer period of your brain. It requires a longer period of your experience. It requires a longer period of your thoughts. If you're someone who wants to understand concepts, who wants to understand logic, who wants to understand different emotions, who wants to understand chapters, right? If you're a logical person in nature, go for non-fiction. 5th point, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6th point. Now we are on the 6th point. What's your learning style? A very important question that you should ask yourself. Are you someone who understands better with stories? I am, right? I usually understand all concepts and all theories only through stories. If I remember a definition, I will not remember it as soon as after 5 minutes. I am like that. My brain's memory is gone, right? I can't remember for shit. But I understand stories in such a concrete manner that I am able to teach other people using only stories. And that's my way. You have to find your way. What's your learning style, right? Is it creativity? Is it got to do with more on the creative style? Is it got to do more with interpretation? Is it got to do more with critical thinking? If it's all of those things, you are, or you should probably attempt reading a fictional book in nature. If you are someone who wants to experience life using real-time examples, if you are someone who learns from other people's experiences, if you are someone who understands the problems that other people have gone through, or understand the success, how did those people achieve success. If you want to implement those things in your life, you should definitely go for non-fiction. And now comes the last and the most important point: personal growth. What is your objective and how do you want to achieve and grow as an individual? Is it got to do with a fun side? Do you want a fun aspect to your personal growth? Do you want to have fun while you're on this journey of reading? Or are you someone who's into enjoyment, someone who wants to understand aspects of life in an emotional way? Are you someone who understands emotional intelligence through stories? Are you someone who wants to understand how to empathize with people via stories? You should definitely go for fiction books. If you are someone who's looking for, or who is a person who has a growth mindset, someone who believes that there are two kinds of mindsets: stable mindset and growth mindset, right? Stable mindset people are people who believe that they are happy where they are, nothing bad in that, it's their perception. And there are other kinds of people who believe that there's a growth mindset. Growth mindset, you want to improve the current skill set that you have. You want to believe that life has a lot of skills to offer that can actually be helpful in your current life. Go for non-fiction books, right? Now, after a lot of time, right, we have finally covered how to categorize yourself and what kind of books should you read according to your personality. Now, I have a few books with me right here that I want to, just take you through very quickly, just the cover pages, and make you understand what kind of books there are currently. And if you're looking, what kind of things that you're looking for. So the reason why I am doing this exercise is so that if I talk about a certain book and that excites you, just go to the description, click on the link, order it and start reading, right? But here is a very, very important tip that I want to give for people who are starting to read for the first time. If you're someone who's starting to read for the first time, buy a book, right, that somewhat is this in size, right? And I'm talking height wise, I'm talking length wise, right? I'm talking about how the book should be a little small in nature, because you will read a lot of pages way faster than starting off with a big book, right? And I think it's a very important aspect to consider. Second most important tip that I want to give you is that try to set a goal, a daily limit of how many pages do you want to read. And I recommend that you start off with 1 page. And I mean this very seriously. Start off by reading 1 page. Even if you feel at times that you want to read the second page, don't do it. Read 1 page, close the book and go to sleep. Or wake up, read 1 page and start doing something else. Here, the point is not having a number of pages in your head, but the point is about consistency. If you keep doing something for days, trust me, there will be a point after a time where you would want to read 2 pages. You would want to read going for further 3 pages, right? It's all about how do you maintain consistency in your reading habits, right? So we'll quickly go through the books and let me know out of these books which one do you want to read currently, right? I will start off with the self-help category, right? Because not a personal bias, but it's something that I as an individual resonate with. There are a list of books that I have and a couple of books that I have with me, starting with Ikigai. I'm sure all of you must have known this, and it has gone viral on social media, Instagram, everywhere about how good this book actually is. Important thing to know is that I have reviewed this book on Instagram. So if you want to understand what this book contains, just go to my Instagram page in the description below and just look at the review of this book. It all talks about your ikigai, and ikigai is equal to purpose. What is your purpose? How do you find it? And what do you do to find it, right? This book covers all of this. It's a small book, right? As you can see, very easy. Even if you read 1 page or 2 pages a day, I'm pretty sure within say 15 to 20 days, you will be able to complete one book. And I think that's a pretty big deal for someone who hasn't started to read yet, right? That's book number 1. Also, if you're just watching this stream, I would request you to please hit the subscribe button or the like button and comment on the video if you feel that this stream is helping you somewhat to get into that direction of reading. Because I can tell you, before reading, I'll tell you a quick story. Before reading, I was a person who used to argue with anyone and anything with anyone, right? I would argue about anything with anyone. I would not look at the situation. I would not look at the circumstances. I would be the least empathetic person that you can think of, because I was so invested in proving my ideas, in proving myself, right? After this book called The Speed of Trust, my life took a complete 360-degree turn. After that book, I became a very, very calm person. I listened more. I empathized more. I understood human behavior more. I understood the concept of trust. How do you break it? How do you build it? What's a trust bank? All of those things. And folks, here I am today to tell you, after 3 years of worth of research, understanding this category and why people can't read, I'm trying to include all of that in one live stream. So I hope this is very helpful for you. We'll quickly move on. Second book, Start with Why. One of my favorite leaders, Simon Sinek, has written this book, and he's my favorite speaker when it comes to leadership. And you will be very excited to know that I have something to explain in 1 minute what this book is trying to say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go here. Now I think all of you can see the screen. Please pardon my handwriting. I have the worst handwriting, and I had the worst handwriting as a kid. So pardon my handwriting there. But this basically talks about the golden circle, and this is not only related to brands, but it's also related to your purpose of life. What the author is trying to say here is that a lot of brands, a lot of people try to go from outside to the inside, right? So this has 3 circles. The innermost circle is the why circle, then comes the how circle, and then comes the what circle. A lot of brands, a lot of people who are confused, they try to take this approach, right? They try to take this approach where they go from outside to inside, right? And here's what it happens. When you take the outside to inside approach, you are starting with not answering the questions that are either vital to yourself or not answering questions that are vital for your brand, right? No one wants to know what are you selling. No one's interested, right? Take for example, and even Simon Sinek, right, gives an example of Apple, right? He gives an example of the Apple brand, where if you look at, and I have a challenge for you, if you look at any of their Apple Watch commercials, if you go to YouTube right now while listening to this stream, and you go to YouTube, any other, open a different tab or something and type Apple Watch commercials, the most important aspect is that that brand will start with why they're doing what they're doing. And it can be as simple as, I want to challenge the status quo of the people around, etc., right? So it starts with a visionary statement that brands want to have, or you want to have as an individual, right? And that's why it also says that if you take this approach of why am I doing what I'm doing, what's the purpose, what am I achieving, what am I going to achieve out of it, then go into how, How am I going to achieve it? So, for example, I want to become an intelligent person. That's my why statement. How do I do that? Well, there are a lot of methods. I can read, I can watch informational videos, I can attend seminars, I can go for a course. So many ways, right? This becomes your how. What do I do? Well, enroll up in a course, buy a book, um, attend seminars. That becomes the attributes, that becomes the what of why you're doing, right? And hence he very nicely explains why you're supposed to go inside out and not outside to in, right? One very important thing that I wanted to bring, because he's one of my favorite speakers and I know that this book has given so many insights to me, it's unreal, right? So here's start with why, Simon Sinek, right? We will go with the next book called, and I think you must have heard this book, it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This book, I don't even know how to explain it, but this book has given me so much clarity in life than no other book has given me. And there is this chapter in this book that I just want to read out the title of the chapter and not the chapter itself. And that chapter sometimes makes me emotional, or it makes me experience things that I would want to do things differently. If you ever buy this book, there is this chapter called Begin with End in Your Mind, right? Begin with the end in your mind. Chapter habit number 2, page 102. If you ever have this book, I would urge you to again go right now and read this chapter if you haven't, right? Begin with the end in mind simply talks about how would you approach your life if you had called all your friends to a funeral, and what are the things that they would say about you in your funeral. So if they had to give a speech about you, what are the things that they would say? And then slowly start building your life backwards. So if you want someone to tell you or talk about you in a way that he was the most empathetic, kind, best listener that I've ever known, slowly start going backwards in your life and take actions accordingly. And what actions? Everything is mentioned in this book. So there are 7 habits of highly effective people. Again, one of my favorite books that's there out there and that you think and you should definitely buy, I also have it in the description, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, right? One of the best writers. I have worked in companies where the training team takes around 50 to 60 workshops of employees just by using the titles in this book, because the titles in this book are insane. It is one of the most simplest books that you can read in life that will change your perspective about how you perceive the world and how it's supposed to be perceived. So it gives very good examples, very, very good stories. And one of the reasons that I think that you should know why I read these books and why I've selected these books is because there are so many stories in every book that I read, even in the non-fiction category, that it makes me remember all the theories and examples, right? So this was How to Win Friends and Influence People. We will go into one of my dad's favorite books and one of my favorite books as well. It's called Mindset, right? A very simple book, right? All of the non-fiction books that I'm talking about right now are very simple in nature, and I am 110% sure that this or these set of books are enough to change or you know what, let's remove the word change, but let's simply talk about how you can become a better person than you already are, right? Because there is no one who can say that I'm the best person on this planet. All of us humans are here on this planet to be the best version of ourselves, and that can only happen if we help others and ourselves. Before helping others, again, a very important aspect, that you help yourself. Know yourself, help yourself, and the only way to do that is by gaining knowledge from different sources. One of those small sources, and sources that gives you internal peace, where you don't need any human, where you don't need any environment, where you don't need any situation, is, according to me, reading. When I talk about this book, it talks about how people are different in their approaches towards life, where some people will always be happy with where they are. Not a bad thing if you think that you want to be in that space where you want to be happy with yourself, because there are people who go through a lot of bad phases, and at this point of time, if you want someone, or if you are someone who wants to be happy with where they are, go for it. On the other hand, if you believe that you can be a lot better than who you are currently, this is your book, right? This talks about how can you grow yourself, and not in the very simple language, but how you can change your mindset to be a different person that helps you motivate you, right? And that's why I love this book. Now, I think I will also do my study, but according to me, people who read this book are, according to me, mainly men. And I'll tell you why. Might be controversial, I might be wrong, but prove me wrong by putting it in the chat box. Gagan commented that I was greatly loved by my best friend. Hi Gagan, thank you so much for the comment. I'm just gonna put a celebratory emoji there. Let's come back to this book. I think most men would read this book because this book is very direct in nature, right? This book tells you to the point, what are you supposed to do in life, how are you supposed to do it, and what can you achieve, right? Naval Ravikant, I think, as you all know, or for people who don't know, a very, very successful person, a venture capitalist, I think so. I think that's also a part of what he does. He's opened several companies, he's sold several companies, and this person, the most important thing, like many other business men or women, I don't genuinely have any interest in going to the gender part of it, but this person has created his wealth from scratch, from zero, and he tells us how to do it, right? Very simple examples that he's given, and the way that he's explained. For example, if you want to genuinely know or if you want to be successful, here are 3 skills that you should definitely know. 1 coding, 1 sales, and 1 something else, right? So he's someone who's very direct in nature, and I personally feel that men would really like this book, or this book will be loved by men, because it does not beat around. It directly talks to the point, and it gives you insights that you have to know in the quickest possible manner, and then jump on to the next, right? So the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, one of my favorite books. This book, I want to talk about as much time as I can take to talk about this book. This book is called Courage to be Disliked. This book is about a conversation with a kid and a philosopher. Why is this book so good? Why is this book, Courage to be Disliked, genuinely liked by everyone? This author, after a long time, has taken a very different approach to writing, right? He takes a conversational approach where he talks about the kid has a lot of problems in his life, and he's like, I'm insecure, I'm this, I'm that, and the philosopher is trying to calm the kid down, trying to open up his mind to the possibilities that the world can give you. And this book, I think this is one of the books where I can say a single book can change your life, and I genuinely think that this is true, right? I genuinely think that this book, and I've seen and I've read and I've spoken to so many people who have said that this book has changed them completely, right? From inside out, right? So Courage to be Disliked is one more book. Nakul Agarwal, hi Nakul, you said 2 of my female friends recommended me the almanac. Oh, that's great. That's actually quite, according to me, quite rare, because the book is so to the point that some people genuinely do not like it, that someone's being so direct with them, like, you know, they start questioning ki tu kaun hota hai mujhe bolne wala ki I have to be this to be successful, right? So it's taken in a lot of ways. It's been liked by a lot of people, it's been not liked by a lot of people. So that was just my perception. Maybe I'll come back with, you know, a research, and if we have time at the end of the stream, we'll actually dive deep and see the statistics. Other book, and I apologize for the condition of this book, right? It is called Atomic Habits, right? I know you can't see the cover right now, but trust me when I say this, like, I've read this book multiple times, right? It's called Atomic Habits, and I'm 100% sure that all of you who are in this category of age group between, say, 18 to 35, 40, have once in your lifetime heard about this book. Now, for people who haven't read this book, you will definitely think कि इतना तो क्या खास है यार ये बुक में, मतलब ऐसा तो क्या कर दिया इसने. For the people who have read this book, नकुल इसको statistics करनी है. नहीं, मेरे को statistics नहीं करनी है, but I genuinely want to see if, you know, the thoughts that I have in mind are true or not. अगर ये सही है कि नहीं है, it's just an assumption that I had made. I want to check it out if it's true or not. This book, the best thing about this book is that every chapter of this book, or almost every chapter of this book, starts with a story. One of the best stories that I have learned in my life about, you know, are people, you know, born leaders? Do people become leaders? Can you be taught something from the day that you were born, and does that lead to successful person? Does that lead to you being successful? So there was this theory that this author wanted to prove, James Clear, and he proved this with an amazing example. I don't want to get into the examples right now, but it's about chess. It's about my favorite topic. I know the example inside out, but it's going to take a lot of time, so I'm going to skip it. But all I'm going to say is that if you want to start forming good habits, and it's not only about good habits, it's about letting go of the bad ones. If you want to let go of bad habits and form good ones, you should read this book. This book talks about how it's important to change the environment in which you are currently in if you want to let go of a bad habit or start a new one, how perception plays a role, what are the actual things that you can do in life to form good habits, right? So for example, as simple as a normal page of a problem phase and a solution phase. It's a very to the point book, but the examples that have given or that are given in this book, mind blown. I can never forget these concepts, and that's what I love about this book. Guys, we finished, you know, most of the self-help books that I have, but not all. If you are someone who likes mythology, if you are someone who believes in understanding concepts and theories and getting into our Indian mythology, this is the genre that you should go for. And these are the certain books that I have in my library that I use to read. feel free to please suggest any books that you have in this category that you think have played an important role in your life. If you're someone who's starting off really fresh, and who doesn't know which big book to read, there's this book called Gita Through Wisdom Quotes. What this person has done is understood Gita as a book, as a concept, and he's tried to narrate Gita through quotes. If I can show you what this book has, it's literally quotes. This book has the shortest quotes, and you will, if not finish this book in less than 2 days, 3 days. And very important aspect is that you will have a book finished within 2-3 days. And if you are someone who's starting off fresh, I would genuinely suggest that you talk about what you read to anyone and everyone that you meet. Always have someone to discuss what you've read. That's the fastest way. One, that you will get motivation to read more books. Point number 2, you will actually feel confident about the knowledge that you've gained. This is regardless that if you're reading fiction or non-fiction. Mind you, fiction teaches you things that non-fiction can never teach you, and non-fiction books can teach you that no fiction book can ever teach you. So it has both pros and cons. Important thing, 2 points to remember if you want to continue reading. 1, talk about it with your friends, parents, colleagues, anything that you've read. This will give you a lot of motivation to continue reading so that you can pass on your knowledge. And point number 2, this will help you remember things. This will help you remember the books that you've read, right? Not everyone can remember what they've read, but once you understand the basic concept of what this book is trying to say, it gives you enough boost to try out something new, and you should definitely go for it. Nakul Agarwal, thanks Rishabh, actually motivated to read a book now. Nakul, I'm so happy. I know you've been that kind of person who wants to read. Either time नहीं मिलता यार, या तो जिंदगी ऐसी हो गई है, या तो इतना busy हो गया हूँ. Doesn't matter. Pick up the smallest book that you know. Read 1 page a day and sleep off or wake up. Right? 1 page a day, not more. Don't even go for the second page. 1 page, sleep it off. That's it. Right? Next genre is, one of my favorite of all time is actually, you know what, we haven't finished the mythological genre. Second book, and one of my favorite authors in this mythology section is, as you all must have guessed, Devdutt Patnaik, right? One of my favorite authors. This guy writes in a way that makes you understand and makes you fall in love with history in a way that no other Indian author has done with Indian mythology, right? When he talks about Gita, you talk about Ramayana, you talk about Mahabharata, anything, this guy makes you fall in love with Indian history. And you should definitely listen to his podcast with Beer Biceps, right? I will, after this stream, after I'm done recording, I will put the stream, the podcast of his and Beer Biceps down in the description. But if you want to fall in love, if you want to understand what our Indian mythology contains in the most fun possible way, read without thinking, read Devdutt Patnaik. Another book, 50 Insights, from mythology. Talks about leadership, teaches you so many things in life by taking small excerpts from different parts of time of Indian history. For example, every story is like 2 or 3 pages, not more. So this is the best book if you want, or if you're someone who understands theories by stories. Go for this. 100% recommended. I will also put a link of this in the description below. And yeah, that's about it. Let's go to the favorite category that I have, a category that has inspired me and changed me completely inside out, apart from the self help category. This category has given me knowledge like no other thing ever. One of the most important thing that this category has done is that it has opened my capacity to understand why I am the way I am, why others are the way they are, why do people behave in a certain way, why do people feel in a certain way, what kind of chemicals are released when you're depressed, what kind of hormones are released when you're happy. It talks everything from start to end about the brain. And all of you know, if you're talking about the brain, we can't leave neuroscience as a subject. For anyone who's watching this stream right now, I would request you, it's taken a lot of time, a lot of efforts, probably a month to almost a month to gather all these insights, collect all these books and give you reviews. If you can just press the subscribe or the like button or comment on the stream, it would really help me, and it would also help that this video reaches out to more and more people so that they can start reading, right? What I'll do is probably after this stream, I'll try to create a small video of how you can get quickly into the habit of reading and what kind of books you should read. Coming back to my favorite topic called neuroscience. Neuroscience as a subject is the most fascinating subject that I have read personally, apart from philosophy, human psychology, and human behavior, similar topics. If you want to start off with neuroscience as a subject, if you want to understand the basics of neuroscience, I would highly recommend you to buy this book as your first book, right? This book is called Cracking Neuroscience. The best part about this book is that this is a visual book. Almost every page in this book has visual elements in it, and you can see from the cover itself, right? The most amazing thing you're about to witness in reading as a category when it comes to explaining the human brain is this book, right? This book is all about visuals. This is where I had reached, and for the second time I read this book completely and I was reading it again. But every page that you see is visual in nature, every page. So this is not only theory, but it's all about how you understand human brain as a subject and what all can you do to ensure that you get some basic knowledge on neuroscience and then dive deeper into it. Second book that I would recommend to anyone who's starting neuroscience is the book called The Brain, The Story of You by David Eagleman. I have to tell you guys, David Eagleman is my favorite. You can say, yeah, David Eagleman is one of my favorite writers on neuroscience, the brain as a concept, and he's given some amazing, he's written some amazing views, amazing stories. He's a neuroscientist. I think he's a neuroscientist professor. I might have to confirm his designation. He's an author definitely, but I think, yeah, he's an assistant professor of neuroscience at Baylor College of Medicine, Houston, right? And this guy will change your perception about neuroscience by giving you things that you didn't know you needed to understand this subject, right? So interesting fact is that I had written a book review of a few books that I've read of David Eagleman, and I had posted it on LinkedIn. One of the most important achievements of my life is that David Eagleman commented on my post and I spoke to him, and it was the most blissful moment ever for me as someone who's a very keen enthusiast about neuroscience. If you want to continue reading neuroscience, I believe that I can't find that book, but it's called Incognito. Incognito is again written by David Eagleman, right? I can show you how that book looks like so that you have an idea, and I will put it on in the description below as well. I had already searched for it, like you must have seen. Incognito book. This is the book Incognito by David Eagleman that has transformed my knowledge about neuroscience. He talks about very interesting stuff in this book, something as complex as we have in our current life, something called as brain 2.0. Brain 2.0 can be installed in humans, and the most fascinating fact is that there will be certain topics that you don't know or have no idea about, and it will be put in a chip inside your brain. The first few days will be the most difficult days of your life, where you will not be able to understand how do you know this, where did this thought come from, all of those things, but slowly get a grasp on that topic and become so good at it that it helps you become what you want in that topic. Simplest example, if you're someone who has no idea how the stock market works, someone implants all the data on stock market that they have in this world, puts it in the tiniest chip on this planet and puts it in your brain. Your brain, no idea what to do with this device, how to take care of it, anything of that sort, will slowly start taking information from that and imbibe it in your brain. And if that doesn't fascinate you, I think nothing will fascinate you if that doesn't fascinate, because there's something called as brain 2.0 that exists. So all the knowledge that I have about neuroscience, I would like to thank David Eagleman for this. Right. A few other books that I have on neuroscience, not going to spend much time, but it's called Phantoms in the Brain, right? Book is all about how you understand the parts that you can't see, things that are not there. How do people feel? For example, someone who's lost their arm, right? They still feel that they have an arm. They try to move it, but it doesn't move, but they think that they have it, right? A very, very special person to me gifted this book to me, and I can say that this is one of the best books on neuroscience if you really want to go a little deeper into neuroscience as a subject. So guys, I think, sorry, just a second. Yeah. So let's summarize what we've done so far, and stay tuned because I have a very, very important checklist to give you, right? I have a very important list that I have to give you, and we'll summarize on how to get into reading faster by quickly going through these steps. And these are new steps. I haven't spoken about this before, and I'm going to start speaking about it now. So please pay attention. How to get into reading. Point number 1, start small and be consistent, right? Start very small, and the most important part is be consistent. Point number 2, choose the right book. We discussed, based on your personality, based on your circumstances, choose the right book that will motivate you to read further. Do not choose a book, read a few pages, get the feel of the book, understand. If you resonate with it, great. If you don't, change the book. No one has ever mentioned that if you pick up a book, you should complete it. If you don't find it relatable to you, change the book. Point number 3, what's the reading space that you have? Create a reading space. For example, as simple as if you will be able to, see that I have a reading light, right? Because I like to personally read and start getting into reading slowly during the night or before I sleep. I'll just adjust my camera because I had changed the settings of it. uh, yeah, perfect. Yeah, so I like to create a dark environment. I like to create a very subtle light yellow type of an environment if I want to read very seriously, right? That's the kind of environment that I love, right? So create a reading space, get away from all the distractions that you have, and create a space for yourself, with yourself, and that is about yourself. Fourth, most important part, set goals. Set a target for yourself that I have to read one book a day and I have to finish this book, say for example, in a month, in 2 months, in 3 months. Take your time, but make sure that you stick to your goal. And if you think that 1 page a day isn't enough for you to finish this book in 1 month, you know what to do. See the total number of pages divided by the amount of time that you want to finish it in and continue reading. That's point number 4. Be consistent and keep going at it. Point number 5. Try to reduce as much distractions as possible when you're reading. In an Indian household, I can sort of say with confidence, एक जगह कुकर की सीटी बज रही है, एक जगह मम्मी चिल्ला रही है, एक जगह पापा अपने फ़ोन पे ज़ोर ज़ोर से बात कर रहे हैं. एंड इन ऑल दैट केओस, अगर तुम एक्सपेक्ट करते हो अपने दिमाग को कि मैं डाइनिंग टेबल पे बैठ के पढ़ूंगा, फॉरगेट दैट बुक, यू विल नेवर इवन गो बियॉन्ड अ पैराग्राफ, बिकॉज एट टाइम्स ऑल यू नीड इज साइलेंस. कभी कभी इतनी शांति चाहिए होती है पढ़ने के टाइम पे कि you will not even realize that you finished 50 pages. This has happened with me from personal experience. Sit in silence, try to avoid noise. If you think your house is so chaotic, go down, find a quiet spot and read. Trust me, this will change and make your day worth going ahead, right? If you're waking up early, and if you're sleeping, the best way to end your day is by reading 1 page or 2 pages, right? So let's quickly, for whoever's watching this new, go through it quickly again. Start small, be consistent, choose the right book, right? Create your own reading space, set goals, which book do you want to complete when, reduce your distraction, right? Be in an environment where you can read, mix and match formats, a very important point. For someone who doesn't know what they want to read, you will only be able to figure out if you read fiction and if you read non-fiction. Read a few pages, समझ लो क्या कहना चाहता है, देख लो अगर आपके साथ रेजोनेट करता है, और अगर फिर भी नहीं करता है, then change the book, change the genre altogether. Doesn't matter. All that matters is that you get into the habit. Everything else can be changed later. Very clear? Perfect. Let's go to the next thing. And one of the most important things that I mentioned even during this stream, if you're someone who has started reading, 1,00,000%, I urge you to go and talk about it with other people. It can be anyone. कोई नहीं मिला, सिक्योरिटी गार्ड के साथ जाके बात करने लगो, but talk about the book, right? Be it anyone on this world or in this world, whatever. Just go and talk to them about it. What this does is 2 things I've mentioned in the stream before also. This will motivate you to read more. This will give you more confidence. And 2, it will make you remember the things that you've read. It might not be sentences, but it might be the concept in general, right? And the last important thing, 2 ways to read a book. 3 actually. You read after you wake up, you read before you sleep, or you read in the afternoon. As per research, the first and the third way are the most effective ones. First being that you read after you wake up. The first thing that you do, have a shower quick, take not more than 5 to 10 minutes of your 24 hours worth of time. You have to dedicate 5 minutes to reading. I don't think that's an ask or something that is negotiable. you should definitely be able to take out 5 minutes of your time to grow. Second, after the whole day has passed and you are now going to sleep, I don't care how tired you are, if you want to be consistent in anything, you will have to do things possibly that you might not want to do at times. So after you're done with the day, as soon as you hit that bed, have a stack of books that you want to read next to your bed. A very important aspect. If you keep it hidden under the bed in the cupboard, your brain automatically realizes that in terms of user experience, I have so many steps to go, take that book out, open that book, read. You see the amount of steps that the human brain thinks before reading. Think about it the other way. Keep the books closest to you so that before you sleep, even though you glance through it, randomly, you feel, oh shit, I just have to read a book. You pick up the book, you read, you close it and keep it back. Again, two most important situations: after you wake up and before you go to sleep. So guys, I think I've tried to cover everything that I could when it comes to creating a reading habit in your life. And if you haven't yet started, take a small book, take the smallest book that you can find. I'll put the links of that also in the description, and start reading 1 page a day. Slowly increase it to 2, and your brain will automatically convert it into 3 and going forward. And I have full confidence that you will be able to do it, right? Let's see. We'll come back after a few streams to check updates on where you guys have reached on reading as a habit, and I'll come back to you soon. For now, I'm going to end this stream. Thank you so much for whoever joined. I hope you liked it, and if you did, I would request you to please subscribe to the channel, because this motivates me to make more and more content for you guys that is easily, freely available for all of you. Because one of my favorite leaders, who is Vikas Divyakarti, right, one of my favorite speakers on this planet, right, he's a professor from Drishti University. Like Drishti, he has his own tutorial. He has his own, I forgot what that term is called, but he has his own classes where he teaches UPSC kids, right? He covers different topics. But as he envisions that, I want this samaj, I want this set of people, the people around us, the society, to think not in an emotional way but intellectual way. And that vision has slowly started to seep in me as well. So I am trying to create a society around me where we do not think emotionally, but we think intellectually after knowing all the facts around us and then coming to a conclusion. Thank you so much, guys. It has been lovely streaming this, and thank you for all the love and support. I'm closing this stream off. Thank you so much, guys.